Welcome back, everybody. Ranting about gatekeeping. Now, if you read that title, you might mistakenly believe that I'm going to be ranting against the gatekeepers. And I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm actually here to mostly say that gatekeeping is a good thing. You might see that this is an issue with two clear sides. I don't see it that way. And throughout the course of this video, I'm sure I will say things where the gatekeepers are going to tell me, you don't care enough. And the anti-gatekeepers are going to say, well, whatever they want to say. The anti-gatekeepers, and the whole reason why I'm making this video in the first place, is because they just assign a lot of untrue things and misrepresent the arguments of the gatekeepers. At least that's what I've been seeing online. A couple weeks ago, I saw some threads where people were getting mad at gatekeepers and getting mad at gatekeeping, completely misunderstanding what it's about. And again, misassigning these arguments to them that weren't even true. To me, gatekeeping generally is about preserving the lore, the traditions, and the themes of our beloved series. It doesn't just have to be games. It could be movies, books, and all kinds of other things, even sports. If you are a bit of a purist and you don't want to change the rule of your beloved basketball games or your hockey tournament or whatever, you can be a gatekeeper there as well. Let me just repeat that for you. I believe that gatekeeping is generally about preserving the themes, the lore, and the traditions of our beloved series. And I want beloved to be a part of the definition there because it shows that people are passionate about these things. That is why we engage with these series. That is why we want to try to preserve them and make them look a little bit more and feel a little bit more like the originals, because those were the great games. Online, what I'm seeing is you just don't want new players playing these games. You just don't want new players in the series. It's like, where does that even come from? It's, first of all, okay, let's just say it is true for some infinitesimally small amount of people. You're not even saying why. You're not addressing that point. Why would that even be true? And it goes back to the definition that I gave. Clearly, these people liked their game in its original version or whatever version's their favorite, and they are either afraid or they don't like the direction that the series has gone since then. But don't focus on the haters. I see too many people who are laying out really good arguments for why they're trying to gatekeep their games, and they just get dismissed. And they're called idiotic or whatever. And, you know, the people on the side of the anti-gatekeeping think that that's enough to win the argument. They have some moral superiority. Shouldn't even be about arguing. At the end of the day, we're talking about games that we all love, right? So can't we have more of a clear conversation about why we love these games? And again, trying to make them newer versions of these games feel a little bit more like the older ones. Now, I am not so emotionally invested in this thing. Video games, as much as I love them, as big of a passion as they are, there are so many other things in my life that I actually care about and that are important, from family to relationships to my dog sleeping across from me in the other room, right? The usual things that people would talk about, keeping a roof above my head and a stable income. Games for me are my favorite hobby, but it mostly stops there. I would never, want to dig my feet in or my heels in too hard to just and get emotionally invested and angry about the direction that a game series is going. But I will get into that a little bit later. Actually, I can get into it right now, actually. Talk about the developers' visions, and one of the earliest things that made me start thinking about this. So back with Elden Ring, and one of the videos I made around that time, I mean, if you need a little refresher on Elden Ring, it was like a spiritual successor to Dark Souls, made by the same studio. No difficulty settings. What you get is just one, way of experiencing the world, but in that world are so many different spells and weapons and ways to customize your character. So you don't have to engage these difficult bosses with melee or with ranged or, with these harder methods, if they are harder. You can try to tweak your build a little bit and reallocate your stats. You can try to find a spell that will make really quick work of a boss because it's so effective or so cheap. And in one of my videos, I used it as an example of why this topic of accessibility has gone too far. At the time, there were people clamoring for difficulty options to be implemented in Elden Ring, and I was staunchly against that. I said, no, I like the game being one difficulty, and then the uniqueness in the experience is coming from the things that I described, the weapons that you got, the spells that you have. When I talk to other people who played the game, we get to have such an interesting conversation talking about how we dispensed with those different bosses or where we went on the map. And I feel like if you start introducing things like different difficulties in a game that wasn't designed for it, suddenly you're getting a little too far apart from each other when you're trying to share your experiences. And that conversation with each other kind of loses some authenticity, I feel. But going back to the main issue and how this relates to gatekeeping is, let's just respect the developers here. If a developer wanted to make a game with no difficulty options, then so be it. And similarly, this is what I was saying where, the gatekeepers are going to say, oh, you don't care enough. If the original, emphasis on that, developers wanted to take a series in a different direction, right? If the main studio head has been at the company for the last 20 years and he's tired of making, Final Fantasies the same way for 6 iterations and he wants to do it differently on the 7th, then who am I to oppose that? I could, sure, anybody could. I'm not stopping you from doing anything. I'm not really going to care too much. Also because I had such a great time and such a great fill of the earlier games. I could just go back to the ones that I really loved if I don't like the new direction that this series is heading. Now, where I do have some problems with this is when it's not the original developers or the original writers. A story starts to change. A series heads in a different direction. These companies are targeting a new audience for the dollars, and they're not doing it out of passion. They're not doing it out of respect for the original series. They're just thinking about the market and wondering how they can capitalize on new trends and how to get some more buyers for their series. That is when you start to get into a lot of problems with existing series. But again, I'm not going to detail them or get into too many specific examples here. I kind of want to keep things moving a little bit more. And so we can go on, I guess, to the next point. But yeah, respect the original developers' visions, right? Respect how they envisioned the game, how they wanted it to play out, and not every game is for everybody. That could be because of difficulty. Actually, this is a great thing to talk about now, to segue into. That not everything is for everybody, and that's okay. I see a lot of overlap in the people who say, I had to drop a game, it was too hard, that's okay. Blah, 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 and that's okay. These types of laissez-faire people who I've got nothing against them. That's not the point here. But there is an overlap with those types of gamers and the anti-gatekeepers. And it's a little ironic to me and almost a little hypocritical when you are trying to tell people that your way of playing a game, which was not actually playing it, you dropped a game or this or that, that is as valid as somebody who played the game. Well, to me, the most valid thing, again, is just respecting what the developer gave you. Take it or leave it. Let the market decide whether the game series should continue in that manner or not. Anyways, let's wrap up now by trying to make a gatekeeper out of all of you. And I'm being a little facetious here, but this is just a fun little thought experiment. Let's say tomorrow, the developers responsible for our favorite series, the Zeldas, the Dragon Quests, the Trails, and so many more, they all announce, as of tomorrow, every future game in the series that gets released will feature adult scenes. Okay, some of you are rejoicing. Take it easy. The rest of you are going to have a serious problem with that. You are going to start to grab your pitchforks and you're going to say, no, absolutely not. Zelda and Dragon Quest, these series are not about adult themes. They're about, Link saving the princess or the two of them working together, dispensing with evil, vanquishing evil, saving the land. All these other kinds of different themes and traditions that were already baked into the series. Don't start introducing these new things now that are offensive to a lot of people and telling us that that's the direction the series has to go to. But then, the company tells you that, well, in our financial research, we discovered that there's actually a lot of untapped market share here. Or actually, there's a really loudmouth part of the community, that's telling us that this is what they want to see in their games. And, with so many similar issues, it just so happens that the gamers who are busy playing the games and who actually spend their money on these games, they're not the ones being loudmouths online. typically you have a lot of people who aren't even fans of the series who just want to get involved because of some other kind of issue that overlaps with this conversation. Anyways, you don't have to argue me on like, oh, well, that's a bit of an extreme example, don't you think? The point is, there is some reason, there is some affront to you even, where it would be worth you wanting to gatekeep your series. And again, for the last time, what does that mean? It just means that you want to preserve the themes and the traditions and the lore of your beloved series. So that's it. That's my little rant. Feel free to say whatever you want in the comments section. This is just off the top of my head. I probably missed some things. I could clarify some things. This video was not meant to offend anybody. Trust me, if I wanted to do that, I could have. It was more so just to try to speak to everybody and to try to clarify a lot of muddy points that were circulating online. So thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.